The air was thin and sharp when I first turned off the winding dirt road that led to the house. Pines crowded the edges of the narrow path, their needles whispering as the wind brushed through them. I could smell the cold, earthy scent of moss and damp soil, mixed with something metallic in the air, the mountain's way of telling me I was far from the noise of the city. My old pickup rattled as it climbed the final slope, and then suddenly, there it was, the house. It looked exactly like it had in the photos, only lonelier. A two-story cabin with fading green paint that peeled like sunburned skin, shutters hanging crooked, and a porch that seemed to tilt just slightly forward, as if bowing in defeat. The real estate agent had called it a charming fixer-upper, which was another way of saying it was barely standing. But to me, it was perfect. It was the kind of place that felt like it had stories buried in its walls, and I was ready to bring it back to life. I stepped out of the truck and stretched, the cold biting at my fingertips. The silence was almost total, except for the distant cry of a hawk and the soft hum of the wind. I had dreamed about this moment for months, escaping the suffocating concrete, the endless noise, the meaningless meetings. I'd quit my job in the city, sold nearly everything, and bought this mountain home to start fresh. I wanted peace, solitude, maybe even a little redemption. The front steps groaned as I climbed them, and the key turned stiffly in the lock. The door creaked open with a sound that sent a shiver through me, not fear, just the echo of neglect. Inside, the air was musty, thick with the scent of dust and disuse. Shafts of light sliced through the dirty windows, illuminating floating specks that danced lazily in the air. The floors creaked beneath my boots as I walked through, each sound reminding me that this place had been waiting too long for someone to care again. I started imagining what it would look like when I was done. New floors, fresh paint, maybe a wood stove in the corner. I ran my hand along the worn banister leading upstairs. The wood was rough and dry, splinters catching the edge of my palm. Every creak and shadow in the house seemed alive with possibility. When I reached the back window, the view hit me like a punch of beauty. The mountains stretched endlessly, their peaks fading into the horizon like layers of misty blue waves. I stood there for a long time, just breathing, feeling small and alive at the same time. This was mine now, my home. I spent the rest of the day unloading tools in boxes, making lists of what needed fixing first. The roof would have to wait until I got some help, but the windows and floors I could handle myself. As the sun began to dip behind the trees, the sky turned molten orange, and shadows crept across the yard. I lit a fire in the old stone fireplace, the flames snapping and popping like laughter in an empty room. That night, I unrolled my sleeping bag in the living room. The floor was hard, but I didn't care. The house groaned inside as it cooled, and the wind whispered through the eaves like a lullaby. I remember smiling to myself before drifting off. Tomorrow, I'd start the real work. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of footsteps. For a second, I thought it was the house settling again, but then I heard voices, two, maybe three people, muffled but close. My heart thudded hard in my chest as I sat up. Who the hell would be up here this early? I checked my phone, no signal. Of course. I grabbed the flashlight from my toolbox and moved quietly toward the front door. The voices grew clearer, a woman's sharp tone and a man's lower, steadier one. I pressed my ear against the wood and caught a few words. A broken bar told you it was a broken bar, she said it was still ours, a broken bar. My brow furrowed. Still theirs? When I opened the door, I froze. There, standing on the porch, were three people, a woman in her 40s with cropped blonde hair and a frown that could cut glass, a man about her age wearing a flannel shirt and holding a coffee thermos, and a teenage girl with earbuds dangling around her neck. They all turned to look at me, startled at first, then defensive. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The woman blinked, then stepped forward. "Who are you?" she demanded. "What are you doing in our house?" "Your house?" I said, confused. "I bought this place 2 weeks ago, from the county auction." She crossed her arms. "That's impossible. This is the Henderson property. It's been in my family for 40 years. We've just been a broken bar away for a while." The man shifted uncomfortably beside her. "Karen," he murmured, but she ignored him. I took a deep breath. "Look, I have the deed inside if you want to see it. The place was foreclosed. No one's lived here for years. Her eyes narrowed. Foreclosed. Number. That must be a mistake. She stepped past me before I could stop her, her boots clomping on the porch boards. I'm not leaving until I see for myself. I followed her inside, frustration bubbling up in my chest. She started walking through the rooms as if inspecting them, her fingers tracing the furniture that wasn't there, the dust that was. The teenage girl rolled her eyes but stayed near the door, while the man, her husband, I guess he'd hovered uncertainly between us. This is ridiculous, I said finally. I have paperwork, receipts, everything. You can't just walk into someone's house and claim it's yours. Karen turned to me, her expression cold. We'll see about that, she said. My mother's things were still here when we left. If you touched any of them, there's going to be a problem. Her words hit me like a slap. There wasn't anything here when I moved in. No furniture, no clothes, nothing but dust and broken boards. She stared at me for a long moment, then gave a small, humorless laugh. Of course there wasn't, she said. Someone must have taken them. Probably you. I felt heat rising in my face. Listen, lady, I don't know what your problem is, but I bought this house fair and square. You need to leave. But she didn't. Instead, she walked to the fireplace and knelt down, brushing aside some ashes. Right here, she said softly. There used to be a photo of my parents on this mantle. It hung there for years. Her husband looked at her, then at me. Maybe we should go, Karen. Sort this out with the county. She stood up slowly. No, she said. I'm not leaving. This is my home. I can feel it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You can't just But before I could finish, she turned and marched up the stairs, her boots echoing through the hollow house. The girl followed reluctantly, muttering something under her breath. The man sighed, gave me a helpless shrug, and went after them. I stood there, stunned, listening to their footsteps move through the rooms that were supposed to be mine. I wanted to yell, to demand they get out, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the sheer absurdity of the situation, or maybe it was the way she'd said I can feel it. There had been something in her voice, something almost haunted. The sun had fully risen now, light spilling through the windows and catching the dust in golden swirls. I could hear drawers opening upstairs, doors creaking, and Karen's voice sharp, insistent, claiming things that no longer existed. I sank into the old armchair by the fireplace, my heart still pounding. I'd come to the mountains for peace. Instead, I'd walked straight into someone else's ghost story.